First, a few words about myself. My name is Anastasiya Alexandrovna Kolobova. I teach at the Institute of International Education at Moscow State Pedagogical University. I have been working as an expert at Russian national exam for quite a few years, starting with the time when it was just an experiment in the Far East. Well, I hope my experience in teaching people how to write essays will be really helpful to you. Well, and as you can see, paraphrasing skills are the keystone of this webinar. What we're going to do, first of all, we're going to look at some time-saving strategies to write a good essay, especially for the Russian state exam. Then we will see how paraphrasing can be used in an essay on one example. After that, we'll get an overview of paraphrasing techniques, which you can use in any essay, whether it's an international English exam or a Russian national exam. And then we will get some tips on developing paraphrasing techniques outside classroom, just even acting on your own. You know that in the Russian national or Russian state exam, you've got about 60 minutes to make an introduction. Well, first of all, to read the topic. Then you are to write an introduction where you are supposed to state the problem, paraphrasing it from the given statement, meaning the task. After that, you express your personal opinion and give 2 or 3 reasons to support it. Then you express or speak about an opposing opinion and give 1 or 2 reasons for this one. In the 4th paragraph, you're supposed to explain why you do not agree with this opinion. And in the conclusion, you restate your position. Well, how can this be done in 60 minutes only? Well, I generally suggest using a particular technique of brainstorming when just having the first look at the essay topic. You choose one which you expect you'd be well, really good at writing about. In this case, I've got just one, and we're going to use it as an example. First of all, you should carefully read the topic, find the keywords, and understand what exact 2 opinions you've got to speak about, choosing one as your own or the one you would support. Here we've got a topic about accommodation for first-year students going to study in another city. Basically, we have 2 options to weigh up, either to rent a flat or to live in the dorm or in the dormitory. When you look at the exam task and choose one topic to write about, you could take notes and basically take notes, very short ones, exactly on the exam, below the exam task. You write the 2 options you are going to weigh up. Choose one as your own or the one you're going to support. In this case, I offer to suggest renting a flat. And then you simply jot down short phrases, which can be arguments in support of your opinion. For example, when renting a flat, you could have nice flatmates and not so many people to cope with. Then there is more freedom, of course, when renting a flat. Well, freedom to come home, freedom when to study, freedom when to have lunch, and what do you have for lunch, and so on and so forth. And of course, this gives an immense boost to increasing one's independence and responsibility, being responsible for oneself. Then we could think about ideas which people who support living in the dorm might think about, such as it's cheaper, definitely it's cheap. Dormitories are usually located near universities, so it's near. And then socializing definitely more varied in the dormitory rather than in a flat where you live with 1 or 2 flatmates. While you're brainstorming the basic ideas for the 2 opinions, you could also think about the counter arguments. For example, if we speak about the price of a room in the dormitory, we can think that renting a flat, we could share the rent with our flatmates. Then a flat to rent may be located simply near the university, and that again makes it quite convenient. So when you've got this just ideas which come to your head when you think about the 2 options, you are comparing, you're weighing up, and especially the one you're going to support, you could proceed to writing the introduction. And that is here we really need paraphrasing skills, because as you remember, the task itself says that you should paraphrase the statement given as the task for the essay. So writing the introduction, as I have already told you, requires paraphrasing skills. You are not supposed to use consequences of words or phrases from the topic, so that is why you need to paraphrase them. At first, I would advise making this general statement on the problem. So you can see that the first-year student is described as a young person who goes to study at university. And 2 options, dormitory and the rented flat, are put together in a phrase, in the word of accommodation. Then, in the second sentence, we state the 2 opposite opinions. The 2 parts of the sentence are connected with a contrastive device, while, as you can see. And again, we see that the phrase in active voice in the topic, some people think, is given in the past, passive voice in this sentence. And again, the first-year student is called in a different way, a freshman. And the 3rd sentence in the introductory paragraph states the purpose of writing the essay, which is basically to express your opinion, having a closer look at these options. Then you can proceed to writing the main body of the essay, and you rely on your notes you made before writing the introduction. So you simply follow the plan you have already got, and you explicitly say that this is your opinion. So you see, I think that renting a flat with friends is the best choice. Then you say that nice flatmates mean that you don't have to cope with people you don't like. You add another point using a conjunction apart from that. And then you can state the most important reason you think. In this way, it's learning to be responsible for oneself and being independent. The opposing point of view should be supported with 1 or 2 reasons. And again, we look at our notes and write straight ahead. Well, just as I told you, the phrases in bold type are supposed to be recommended phrases. Of course, they are not the only ones. There are such a variety of conjunctions, linking devices in English. You could choose the ones of your own, but here you can see those. So the 2 points for the opposing point of view are given using conjunctions firstly and secondly. Then in the 4th paragraph, where you say that you disagree with the opposite point of view, you give the reasons why you disagree. Well, as we have those reasons in our draft, in our plan, we can easily refute the reasons of the opposing side. Of course, we should say that this is something said to contradict, to refute the reasons of the other point of view. We use although. And we state the reasons why we disagree using again paraphrased versions of phrases from the main body. When you have to deal with the conclusion, you will need to have a look at both paragraphs stating your opinion and the one stating the opposite opinion, so that you could sum it up, put it in a shorter form, and give the essence why you think your point of view is the correct one, is the most logical one. So in the first sentence of the conclusion, I would advise stating the controversial nature of the problem, such as this, that choosing where to live is a really difficult choice for school leavers. Then basically in one sentence, or maybe in two, just it's up to you, you could sum up the main thing about the opposing opinion. Again, sum up your reasons for your point of view, and emphasize why your point of view is more logical, or has more meaning in real life, or is better applicable. So an example sentence will be the following. So we spoke about cheap prices of living in a dormitory and the location, which is usually near the university. So instead of saying full sentences, we could use words which basically sum up the mismeanings, using the words affordable and convenient. Then again, we could say that this could ease for freshmen the way to get into studying, to get into students' life, and learn to be independent and responsible faster, or just make it easier for them. Thus, in this example essay, we could see a few ways to paraphrase statements, because we really need paraphrasing skills in the introduction, in expressing why we disagree with the opposing point of view, and again in the conclusion. Another reason to be especially careful and to understand the importance of paraphrasing skill is that in the assessment outlay, it is said that the candidate's vocabulary is assessed according to the variety of means you, as exam candidates, can use. It strictly speaks that if you use one and the same word for 2 times and even more, it really shows that you haven't got enough means. You are not capable of expressing ideas in a variety of ways, but you are supposed to do this. And this criterion, being able to use a variety of lexical and grammatical means, it's important not only for the Russian state exam, but also for the for all international English exams, if you decide to take any. So let's have a look how we can use synonyms or antonyms if we want to paraphrase to restate the same ideas following the plan of our exam essay. For example, this sentence: now we have enough evidence of the benefits of doing sport. How can we replace the word enough? Yes, this can be the word sufficient, for example. Yeah. And again, here we can see a different grammatical structure. Instead of the phrase we have, we can say that there is sufficient evidence for this. Then the word real, for example, can be simply replaced with such synonyms of that as authentic or genuine. Then antonyms can be also a way to paraphrase our ideas or the topic of the sentence. For example, the sentence, smoking should be forbidden. We could use a synonym, it should be banned, or we could use an antonym and a negative structure, like smoking should not be allowed, or it should not be permitted. So this way we have 3 other ways to express one and the same idea. And just this is to say nothing of grammatical variety of structures to be used here. Well, another example, such a project may fail. We could use an antonym and a negation structure and make it such a project might not succeed. Well, and here, that's another way to express the same ideas. So synonyms and antonyms are, well, abundant in English because it has been borrowing words heavily from other languages, inventing new words, and that is why we can have just such a wide choice of words to express one and the same idea. But I strongly recommend be careful. And when you come across a new word and you look for its synonyms or antonyms, and this is actually really easy to remember words in these synonymous or antonymous pairs, you should be careful about the style, because if in the essay you use a synonym or an antonym of a wrong style, let's say spoken English, colloquial English, this would be a kind of stylistic mistake, and this should be avoided. So you should always keep in mind what kind of word it is, if it's neutral style, if it's colloquial style antonym. Well, another way to paraphrase in English is replacing one part of speech with another. Let's have a look at some examples. Here we've got a sentence: many teenagers play computer games. The whole phrase can be put like this: gaming is one of the favorite pastimes of young people. So we have a paraphrase of young people instead of teenagers, and the fact that they play this kind of games is expressed as it is one of the favorite pastimes of them. Another example has a word to choose, like it is important to choose a degree course which will guarantee good career prospects, and we can put it, we can use again gerund, choosing a university program guaranteeing one good career, a good career is essential. So instead of important, we have essential, and instead of infinitive to choose, we have gerund, choosing. It's practically one of the easiest way to paraphrase a sentence using another grammatical structure. Then using passive voice, active voice alternatively is another really effective way to bring in variety into your essay. For example, the phrase "we should research into the benefits and drawbacks of reading ebooks" could be put into passive voice, like beneficial and harmful effects of reading from screen should be researched. Or vice versa, if originally you have a passive voice structure, you could make it active voice structure, like other planets can be explored and settled, just coming up with a suitable subject like humanity. We can say humanity can explore and settle planets in faraway galaxies. So faraway galaxies like other planets. Well, comparison structures are also useful in this sense, I mean, paraphrasing. And well, we can have a look at those examples. Like some students think that distance learning is worse than face-to-face learning. You can simply make it the opposite, like instead of worse, you can use better. Like it is thought that the usual way of learning is better than distance learning. Or instead of the superlative comparison structure, you could use a comparative one. Like some universities are considered to be the best place to study. We can express it like some universities are known to be far better than others. Well, just again, a sentence paraphrased. Now let's have a go at synonyms and antonyms together. So we'll see at first some words, and I'd like you to provide synonyms for them first, and let's see the chat. Well, так. Так, huge, yes, big. No, tiny is an opposite. I was speaking about a synonym to it. Well, I'm sorry, one moment. I will put it here. And this. Okay, so once again, huge, big, yeah, enormous. Well, yeah, giant. Very good. Yeah. Well, what about enthusiastic? What do you think? Any ideas? Okay, I will give you, well, a clue. keen, exciting, more like excited, I would say. Optimistic, yeah, to a certain extent. Yeah, creative, well, I wouldn't say this is, strictly speaking, a synonym. Yeah, but emotional state is definitely similar. Well, okay, what about the verb to predict? Well, what will be your guesses? Well, yeah, forecast, very good. Well done. Then, what about the verb to change? How can we say we change something? Yeah, just nearly. More like alter, because alternate, it means use one thing and then another. Yeah. Replace, yes, it can be. Agree, Maria. And what about the word main? Main, shift, yes, change can be, yeah, synonymous to shift. Main, crucial, yes, very good. Yeah. Or key as well, yeah, just the main points, the key points, the main features or the key features of something. Major, yeah, very good. General, I wouldn't say so. Basic, to a certain extent, yes, but not strictly speaking. Well, what about the verb to use? How would you say to use, in other words? Okay. Okay, this might be to employ. So we could use some techniques, yes, or we may employ some techniques. Provide with, well, I wouldn't be so sure. Well, now let's have a go at antonyms. First, we have the verb to spend. What do you think would be the opposite? Waste. To a certain extent, it's about efficiency of spending some resources, or maybe to save. Yeah, save, right, you are. Okay, then what about to create? To create something, the opposite will be to destroy. Yeah, right, you are. Yeah, good. Destroy, good. Then we had the, well, and then the verb to accept. Yeah, refuse. Well done. Good. Okay, what about the verb to admit? Disapprove, to a certain extent. In some situation it might be opposite. What about admit? What do you think? Deny would be just we admit some things, or we may deny these things. Well, what about defend? Argue, yes, attack. Well done. Yeah. Argue, not strictly speaking, no. And compulsory would be the opposite of rush. As for defend, again, it's just in a really particular situation. Compulsory, beginning, no, I wouldn't say so. Particular, no, and this would be voluntary. Optional, yes, optional might be, yes, another. Of course, the synonyms and antonyms, as we have seen by your suggestions, are not the only ones. There may be just a few more for every word, and you were in most cases right about supplying your synonyms or antonyms. This is just an example of those. Okay, now a few tips on this. How can we learn to paraphrase? First of all, paraphrasing should be based on extensive vocabulary, and vocabulary can be worked at, it can be expanded, and probably the best way is to read. I think that's the best way to expand your vocabulary. And another way to expand it is to do some activities using vocabulary reference books. I've got 3 examples here. These are not widely known. I use them, and I think they are quite good. They provide really good practice. For expanding vocabulary, including practicing synonyms or antonyms and paraphrasing. Maybe like this. They are not the only ones, just it would take, well, more than 2 slides, probably, or more than 3 slides to recommend all. And then when you are working on particular expansion of your vocabulary, it's very effective to draw mind maps. Just you get some basic topics and you build up kind of tree like this, separating vocabulary into subgroups and writing down synonyms and antonyms along with the words you come across. Well, this is just an example of a mind map on education. Well, what else can be done? Just as they say, 2 heads are better than 1, so it's always good to brainstorm essay topics together with a friend, somebody like a study buddy you might get. And I advise you to write down your opinions with the reasons for these opinions and the keywords on these basic topics or an essay topics as well. Here you can see 7 sample topics of opinion essays. Just if you want, you could watch this video again on YouTube, stop at this moment and pick one and have a go at an essay. Maybe have a go at all of these if you wish. Then feedback. This is always just always valuable. Feedbacks from teachers and feedback from friends. Just exchange your views, exchange your brainstorming drawings, exchange your essays, and get as much feedback as you can. Well, just, and again, if you can turn to not one but a few teachers to get feedback to your essays, just don't miss this opportunity. Well, and now just I would most welcome your questions. Well, glad to be of help. Oh, I'm fine, thank you. Well, hope you are all well, safe. Oh, thanks. So nice of you. Well, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, using, of course, using 2 or 3 synonyms, of course, not next to each other. This way to use synonyms is more characteristic of fiction, when writers just use the synonymous condensation. It's a kind of device used sometimes in fiction. In an essay, synonyms should be used carefully. Just you can, for example, see one word or phrase, then you express this idea in other words, just paraphrasing it in your opinion paragraph, and then you use the 3rd synonym in the conclusion. And thus, you are just safe. You put your best foot forward. You have done your best, definitely, and your vocabulary would be most appreciated. Oh, good that you know. Well, I would advise refraining from being too emotional when you refute your opponent's view. Essay is not an article, or it's not a letter or a post on some social networking site just where you can vent out your emotions. I think just either saying how much you respect the opinion is not strictly necessary. It's good, but it's not obligatory. But you cannot say that you completely disagree. You just state your reasons why you disagree, and that's obvious why you don't agree. Of course, you can write that, well, this opinion has certain certain strong points, but well, I do not completely agree. Something like that, probably. Examples. This is not, again, obligatory. This is good if you have got any examples to provide, but generally, the word count is just enough to follow the plan, basically, to stick to it. Just be careful, count your words, and if you train just as many times as necessary, you can see how many words you generally have in your essays. Okay, yeah. Glad to be of help. I hope you will do it just really well, and you will pass your exams with flying colors. Any questions? Спасибо. Ага. Так, Arina. Well, as for paraphrasing, well, I think not. I think it just the requirements, the assessment criteria say that you, as school leavers, are supposed to demonstrate that you know a variety of grammatical structures, and I would advise you to use as many as you can and as many as suitable. Well, reasons, yes, for every statement, reasons are necessary, but examples is another thing. If you just make a statement and then you give, for example, you say that you agree with particular point of view, and then you give your reasons, and then if you write in examples, you will just simply exceed the word count, and this might be quite problematic. That might be dangerous in certain sense. Examples. Well, I think that if just Maria, you mean 2 arguments instead of 3? Yes, I suppose you're speaking about our opinion paragraph. I think these 2 options are equally good. So you should either supply 2 arguments, 2 reasons for your opinion, and provide examples, or you may give 3. Just 3 reasons without particular examples. Good. Welcome. So your questions are most welcome. Do not hesitate to write. Okay, thanks. As for speaking, practice makes perfect. Well, what else? Just I often advise my students and my private students not only speak to teachers, to us, to also get a friend who you can talk to in English. And just first of all, you should be really clear about the criteria for, say, speaking exam and what kind of tasks are ahead of you. And then you could practice, because there are such a variety of books for with tasks, sample tasks of exams, where you could have just abundance of practice, just lots of this. And if you are not really sure about your speaking skills at first, it often helps to write down what you're going to say. Yeah. Goodbye. You're welcome.